You all are the residents. This is your community. We respect that. We've been building here in this community now since, I believe, 2004. We started off at Chestnut Estates and then went to Chestnut Commons, and then, of course, at Senator Crossing. Thank you. So we've been in the community for a while. We respect that. I think the first meetings I had here were over in the old men's club, and we had fold-out tables. So it's great to see the turnout this evening. So with me tonight is Andrew Mao. Andrew is our land acquisitioner, and Tiffany Grant. Tiffany is our director of forward planning and entitlement. So I'm going to let them speak. But before doing so, I just want to introduce Mike Metrikoff. Mike is with Addison Development. It is Addison that will be doing the development here, and we would be the recipient of those lots and construct all the homes. But we would engage closely with Addison as far as what the development would ultimately entail. So, can you speak on that? We appreciate your time and attention this evening.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for your time. We do want to revisit this. We've been in front of you before. Obviously, the input from the community and the council is very important for us. We want to address some of the questions that came up in email. Jack has been back and forth. I believe Z, thank you so much for these things. We definitely want to address that, open up to any questions. And the most important thing to say is that this is a DR Horton community. We're building it, but it's essentially going to be a continuation of what you see at Center Crossing with some of the new updated product and selections, patio homes, and some different living options. I think the community would welcome to get some positive feedback.
Thanks. Thanks, committee, for having us, giving us this opportunity to present in public, for being here today. So this is the property, 110 acres, basically northeast of Durrett and McCord Road. Property's annexed into the village of Commercial Point currently, and it's zoned exceptional use.
Unknown caller.
So the plan is to essentially be an extension of Scioto Crossing. So as you come in, we've got some open space down at the entrance at Durrett. You come in and you tee into a almost 10 acre open space with 2 acres of green with a park, playground, pavilion, and then you'll have the preserving almost over 7 acres of woods behind that will have, for passive recreation. We'll have some trails through there that will tie into the that the community will be able to get to through some of these entrances, some of the openings that would provide access. And then so like I said, it's over 7 acres of woods that will be preserved down there, and then we've got a couple acres of woods down south. Our total open space is 27.6 acres versus a requirement of 18.1 acres. So we've made a commitment to try to preserve as much open space as we can. We've got extensive buffering around the site. We've got this green space along here to try and preserve the woods, so that we can preserve the woods without having to go through them with storm water, and then storm sewer, and then basically the whole site has green space around it, including up on the north end. We've got some mounding against McCord Road and the neighbors there as well. So here you can kind of see this would be the open space. This will be the woods that are impacted, but we're preserving probably about 60% of the woods. And here's some example of the playground, park, and pavilion that we would be putting in that open space. Then on the site plan, so on the east side, we have sub-area C. and that will be, that will be 63-foot lots, which is what is on, inside of the crossing, along with some 50-foot lots that will, that are basically for, that kind of help with variety as you go through the community, as you know, with different sized lots, it creates some interest. Same product, it would just, those would be 2-car garages versus 3-car. Up in the northwest corner, we have patio homes. So those will be ranches targeted towards move-down buyers for some of the, for residents that are ready to ready to move down some of the out of the existing homes. Or we also see a lot of times you'll have the family with the grandkids will move in to the main area, and the grandkids will want to be close to them, so that, or the grandparents, and they'll come and do the buy a patio home in the same community. And then in the southwest corner is those are 50-foot lots. So same product, just those would all be 2-car. So this results in we have a 321. What I've got here. So 100. Some of the key facts: we got 110 acres. over 27 acres of open space versus 18.1 required. 321 lots. 81 patios, 84 of the single family, and then 156 in the eastern section. For a gross density of 2.91 dwelling units per acre, and a net density of 3.77 versus an allowed density of 4 units to the acre in the PRD. Here's some examples of the product. So this is our 3-car integral product. And then these would be the more of a single family product that we would offer to the 2-car. But on some of these you could put a 3rd-car garage on them as well. And then these are here are the examples of patio homes that we would offer up in that northwest section.
That's the single level, 4th floor master, age targeted.
Yes, that's an age targeted product.
Okay, this is when I will speak in here. Sorry, I want to kind of see you guys kind of short. So when we're looking at coming in with a new development, we hear concerns quite often that communities want to know what the school impact will be to our development. So what we do is we try and be as transparent as possible, given public information that's made available to us and to the public. So we first want to see, in Tays Valley local school district, sorry, mind the way.
You're fine. No, you're okay.
We wanted to see what the current enrollment was. So we can get that from multiple pieces of information. So we pulled the information from the Ohio Board of Education, as well as Tays Valley Local School District, as well as the U.S. Census. So given that Tays Valley Local School District is about 152 square mile area, and we've got about 26,000 people in population in the school district. This is not Commercial Point, this is just the school district. We also have about 8,400 households. So using that ratio and the average daily enrollment of Tays Valley, which is about 4,300, we get about a 0.75 student ratio on every new home that's brought to the community. So that figure also has been run through with the school board, not school board, but the superintendent, and we're kind of on par with that. It's a little bit high and conservative, but we're okay using that. So given that ratio, we're going to be bringing 321 homes to the community. And those 321 homes with that ratio will generate, very conservatively, about 240 students. I say very conservatively because 81 of our 321 homes are, in fact, as Andrew mentioned, patio homes or age targeted. So the likelihood of those 81 homes generating any students per se is very low. It's not nil, but it's low. But we're including those patio homes as if they were generating students. So I just wanted to point that out. So we have 240 students. We're building 321 homes. Well, we're not going to be delivering 240 students on day one to the school. We're also not going to be delivering 321 homes to the community on day one. So we are expecting about a 40 home per year development plan here, which is a very, on average, successful pace in any kind of community. We're selling about 40 homes a year. So when you take that ratio of 0.75 and you multiply that by the 40 homes coming out each year, you can anticipate about 30 students coming out of our development every year. Those 30 students are not all gonna be in 8th grade, they're not all gonna be in 2nd grade, they're gonna be dispersed just as a normal population is. So you can expect about 2.3 students per grade each year coming from our development. Year one, we anticipate if we're successful with zoning and the public support, we would start building around 2028, I would say. So that would be our first year of build. So, you know, we're gonna take the first year to build out, we might be generating students around 2028, about 30 students, that's, you know, right on par with what we're thinking. And that's gonna go on for another 8 to 10 years, a slow transition of bringing students on. Now, if you look at it, like I said, per grade, you're sitting at about 2.3. I know that there's some capacity issues with the schools going on. I'm not here to represent the school, I'm here representing DR Horton. I'm just providing information that's made available to everybody. The fact is, every school in the state of Ohio has to submit a 5-year forecast to the state of Ohio Board of Education. And that's to get some kind of special certificate to get funding from certain revenues coming in. That is all tied to enrollment count. So we pull this 4335, that was as of May of 25, that came from Tays Valley's district summary profile. That's what the state of Ohio recognizes Tays Valley to have, and that's what we use. So as far as their financials are concerned, when you pull their financial report, which I've made copies of, anyone can have a copy of it, it's a 5-year forecast, starts 2025 through 2029, which is 5 years, count on your fingers. Those 5 years show a positive operating balance all 5 years. Now, the caveat being there's no capital expenditures in those budgets. They're not anticipating building any schools with that money. They're getting in about $17,000 in revenue per student per year. The expenditures for those students are about $14,000 per student.
7,000.
$17,000 per year revenue coming in. That's a combination of state funds, local tax, income tax, and some other miscellaneous revenue that was very instrumental. So they've got a positive cash flow for operations, and operations are going to cover things like salary, you know, turning the lights on, books, things like that. It does not cover building a school. We understand that. So things like that would require certain tax levies and bonds to pass. And we all know in the news that that's what's going on. I'm just here to report to you that their financial district profile that's reported to the state of Ohio for the next 5 years is positive, and it's positive for the next 5 years. So I'm trying to think what else I'm missing here, if anything, on this. I think that's all I wanted to present on this, just to give you guys some facts I pulled from the. Oh yeah, let me just give you a little history. And I'm just putting this card out here because I personally have history in commercial. I don't currently live here. My first home was in Southern Point back in 2004, I think, or 5 maybe. So I was a single mom, grew up in the south end of Columbus, southern end of Franklin County. Hamilton Township was my alma mater. I moved down to Southern Point with my daughter. So excited to have this house and just loved that community for the first couple years of her life. And unfortunately I went through a divorce and I had to move. My parents moved, they're from the south end of Columbus as well. They ended up moving to Chestnut Estates. Wherever that's at.
Yeah.
So I have a brother that's about 13 years younger than me, and they brought my brother down as well. So my brother essentially graduated from Tays Valley local high school in 2010. His name is Barry Ramp. I'm very proud of him. And he grew up on Cherry Tree Lane for his freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. My mother, Marion Franklin, she was born at Rickenbacker Air Force Base. So I hear a lot when I attend these meetings that there's no partnership or transparency, or people are coming in here from other areas of town. I don't live here, I'm being transparent, but I am from the area. We care about you guys. We've been here since 2004, whether it's through Dominion Homes or Westport Homes or DR Horton. We want to be here. We want to be here responsibly. I have family member that goes to Tays Valley to this day. I have many, many cousins that go there. We want to build responsibly. We want to build responsibly, and we do build responsibly. When there are issues from prior subdivisions, we are here to listen to you and to correct it, and that's what we're here to do. So I kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm very passionate about Commercial Point, Pickaway County especially. I know that might mean something to some of you, so I thought that'd be important to share. So nonetheless, that was my little school report on the public information, and yes, what else? Anything else you want to talk about?
What's next slide?
I think that's it. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Anybody have
Any
questions
questions?
specifically? Sure.
We actually have two, so are you gonna be digging those ponds? Or do those already?
These ponds
exist?
here?
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's great. One thing about stormwater that often goes unrecognized. In the state, we have a requirement to, whatever property that we're developing, we have to at least maintain the water that is on that site at that time. So what I mean by that is, there's water flow that is sheeting throughout this farm field. Nothing sheets like a vacant farm field. But to answer the question, yes, stormwater management will be made throughout the community, which would include stormwater piping, inlets in and around the properties in the open space that collect into the stormwater, and then obviously these ponds. Now these ponds they would have fountains in them, and they're more beautified than what we're seeing just here. But they act as retention basins, and then they were designed to release water under certain flood conditions, 100 year, 200 year. But all of the water would be contained on the property to where we can't cause any harm to any neighbor. And that would go through our engineers, and then of course the village's engineers would have to review and approve all those design standards. To answer your question, yes, we would build ponds.
Because I have spoken to council about safety issues around retention ponds, so that's a big one for me. And my second question, the playground equipment, would that be accessible for people of all different abilities? Would you be interested in learning about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of accessibility, and I believe you're talking about anyone with any type of accessible issues. Okay, we would certainly be welcome and be open to that, certainly. Yeah.
And the same thing for the ponds. because
Yes.
That is some safety around the ponds that.
One of
Sherry has some experience from that.
Involved in all kinds of stuff.
Right.
and so you're probably familiar with the benching requirements that are now, they're starting to talk about, okay, where there's 2 feet of water, and that then benches out to I believe it's 15 feet, could be a little bit more than that before it slopes off, so anyone that goes in can stand up.
And then the life preservers every 300 feet.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I got here late. Is this the same proposal that ran through last time? They got denied twice to the commissioner's
That's
office.
not the same one.
So this
that's gonna
plat
be the next
here
one.
is for what part of that acreage? All of it or part of it?
This
or-
is at Durrett and McCord,
Okay,
right?
All right.
So north of town.
I wasn't sure because this is confusing with this.
That's the
map
next
on
one. That's
Just
fine.
west of Scioto
All right.
Crossing.
What's the minimum spacing you have between the houses?
The way it's designed today, there would be 10 feet between each home. So the minimum side yard requirement that is being proposed is 5 foot each. Okay, so on a 63-foot lot, you could effectively build a 40 or 53 foot wide home if you had 5 and 5 on each side. So and then the next lot, you would have that additional 5 and 5. So that would be 10 feet. None of the homes I'm showing you here, none of them are 53 feet wide. The widest home that I'm showing here would be one of those with a 3-car jet. That is a 50-foot wide home. So you would have, if it's 50 feet, that's the biggest. That would be a full 3-car. That would be 50 feet. So on a 63-foot lot, that would allow you 6.5 on each side, and even next door if you did that same thing. So the minimum with the product that we were proposing today would be 13 feet in between the buildings.
I'm concerned about it being too close because this area with high wind, very high wind that comes through here, without having firewalls between each house. That's a problem in the making. Years ago, up in New Albany, Little Turtle, before they put firewalls between each individual house, fire jumped from attic to attic, different circumstances, same development.
Sure.
And I witnessed it, and we built 4-inch firewalls between the condominiums and what they were.
Yeah.
And are you using, so if they're gonna be that close to each other, are you using fire retardant materials like party board?
No. What I would say though is this. This would be the exact same lot sizes as what is built in Scioto Crossing today, what was built in Chestnut Commons today, and also what is built at Foxfire. These are no smaller and have no less side yard requirements. So they would be very consistent. So as you drive through those communities, that you would see that same type of consistency between the buildings.
As the two stories go up, the flames span out further. And that's where you gotta look at the perspectives of something like this happening.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and it can or does happen. I've been in the building, aspect of this for 40 years myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on both sides of it as a supervisor on 2 different projects. And we made concessions to keep this from happening, to some degrees. And that was, that's been a few years ago and codes have changed. But, and you're telling me that that's what you've done at the other places. But as we go through years, codes need to adapt. And we get smarter and we adapt with them and then we implement them.
Sure. There's no different than every home today is wired with a smoke detector, and there's
Right,
one in every
right.
bedroom, and there's battery backups and carbon monoxide
Right,
detectors.
and
Sure.
daisy
Absolutely.
chain together, right?
No,
Are they daisy chained?
Yes, they are, 100%. Now, the other thing I would say on that matter is before anything is approved, and council knows this will have to be reviewed by a technical review committee. So fire is gonna look at this.
Yeah.
Health and safety is gonna look at this, whether it be the configuration of the street, where parking is going to be allowed, can they get a ladder truck through, the width of the streets, the distance between the homes, that would all be reviewed by fire.
What type of, fire, hydrants do you have situated in, like because you got 3 different zones, are they, I guess, more in the tighter zones than
There's a minimum requirement, so anytime you have any variation or any turns, there's a minimum requirement, just like you have, like an electrical code says you have to have an outlet so much from every door. There's a similar way when you space these things, again, these are designed and reviewed by, there's certain things, just like for manholes, just like curb inlets, fire hydrants, that's all calculated, engineered specs, and we certainly, glad you bring that up, because codes do change, and so that, our engineers are up to speed with all of that. And again, that gets reviewed by the village engineer, and there's one retained, and they would vet all of that. So what you're talking about is very important, and it's something that gets reviewed along, like Jack said, the radius of the roads, the cul-de-sac, all of the access points. That's paramount when these things are designed. And I think the fire code is anything that's closer than 10 feet requires fire retardant walls. And as you're saying, the minimum is 13 and a half, I think is required by code.
On the retention ponds, do you have hookups for the fire trucks out of the retention ponds for additional, pumps to access?
I believe we do. I believe we have. It oftentimes that'll be predicated on the length of a street, if it can possibly get closed off for whatever reason, and then if there is a retention pond in some proximity, then they may require that, yes, to where they would have access to use the water out of the ponds.
I had a neighbor that got killed in a fire and something that's been, she has an issue with the retention pond, and I had a grandfather that drowned, so I have different skin in the game on these subjects here, and knowledge is what's going to keep something happening down the road. And it should never be overlooked. It should never be overlooked, and it's in the details of everything. If you don't have a plan, you got a plan to fail.
There's a lot that goes into it through multiple reviews, and again, it gets reviewed by the fire, police have to take a look at it, city engineer, storm, EPA, all of those components review these plans, and anything that has to do absolutely has to be planned and executed and then inspected to make sure it's installed in specifications, so.
And then ultimately signed off by the village to accept it.
Yeah, I get that, yeah, I met with, you know Mike Homes on Homes. I met with him up in Cleveland, about 3 weeks ago. We went over codes and things that's relevant now, and sometimes codes are a minimum requirement in houses. But there's sometimes you can go a little bit past that because of common sense and be able to adjust it a little bit if something is written at the time, and then it adapts to the code. And there's things that I know that unless you don't know what you don't know until you learn, right?
Sure.
And I've learned a lot of this.
Well, for example, every home that we build on a basement,
Yeah.
every one of those I-joists is treated for a fire retardant.
Yeah, right.
So if there's a fire that goes on in that basement, there is a retardant placed on every one of those I-joists to keep that floor from burning as long as it possibly can. So fire code is very, it's very much on the top of mind for the Ohio building departments.
Okay. I'm sorry, Dan.
No, you're fine.
Could you pull up, some of the houses that you just showed on the slide?
Sure.
One thing that I've noticed with housing developers, that I particularly don't really like, because it's deceiving, is, you see the green space between the sides of the homes that you show on your slides?
Oh.
But when, in reality, you would actually see the houses on both sides of those houses in that picture. So that part of it is deceiving, where you guys come in and propose something and it looks great on a screen like this, but to physically view it in real life, it doesn't look like that. So my question is, when you guys always come here and propose annexations and want to put housing developments in down here, and they look great on slides, they do. But why do you have to have it so condensed? Because everyone that I talk to that wants to buy in this area, I keep hearing from developers that, well, people don't want large lots. But actually, in reality, people do like larger lots. They like green space. That's why you're putting green space in here. So I don't get the point where you guys try to condense so many houses into such a small confined area, when you should really be having it. It looks good like that with the green space you have, but there's no green space at all, like spaced out between these homes. They're like just boxes upon boxes upon boxes. And that part of it, I know you have to make your money to be able to do the development, but it also doesn't make sense if you go around to some of these older established developments that are in this town. They have green space and they look really nice and they sell really fast. And it's because they look like that. People like that look. That not everyone likes to not mow grass or have it look like that. That's the biggest problem I have when you guys propose housing developments in this town. That it just doesn't reflect that. That is not what it would look like.
Let me say this, and I appreciate your question. The reason these are created this way is because that's what our customers are going to look at. The reason I say that is because they want to look at the plan itself. If you start drawing in some other things in addition to that, then it confuses the buyer as to what does my home actually look like. So that's why they're drawn this way, and that's why we propose them this way. Could we draw a streetscape for you and present that? Of course we could. That would be something much more realistic. We're just trying to give you a sample of the homes that we would build here. But we could do an architectural streetscape as to far as how close the homes are together. The other thing I would say this, I would beg to differ on mowing lawns. Families are very busy on the weekends. Kids are busy schedules, irrespective of the time of year. And we hear it quite frequently. I don't want a big lot. I want, if I'm going to maintain it, I'm not gonna be on that tractor for 3 hours. So we want something smaller, more maintainable. We wanna put a playset in the back. We might want a trampoline in the back. I might wanna fence my yard in, but I don't need to be on a mower for 3 hours. And they do like the more common space and the open space so that all of the kids can get together in those areas and not just the select few in that area. That's my experience. I've been in home building now for nearly 40 years, and I've seen it evolve over time. The last point that I'll make is, as far as the density goes, does it come down to affordability? 100%. What we're looking at here, these are 6-figure lots, just the lots. I mean, so we're looking at home prices that are gonna be on the affordable side, in the low 400s, and more like in the mid 5s.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think they deserve to have their green space if they're gonna pay those type of prices.
And the market will determine that.
If you look at Kent's Road or Walker Road, large lots, 8 acres or more, that sold recently, within the last 5 years, they sell very fast.
I can
They're-
imagine they do.
It's very hot down here because that is a reasonable sized lot. It's affordable for most people that could afford it, that save their money and don't spend it frivolously. And they go very fast down here because people like those lots. That's why you have your opinion and I have mine, but I'm telling you from being down here since '06, that is a hot topic. People like to have land.
Well,
It's
not to be
everyone
argumentative,
likes to have a condo.
and I don't wanna be argumentative, but I would say those homes selling in Chestnut Commons and Chestnut Estates, Saddle Crossing and Walker Point are selling just as fast.
No, I don't think so. I mean, this past summer, I saw people standing out there with signs and stuff like, hey, we're selling more houses back here, come on in. I don't think someone needs to stand on the road and advertise that they're selling houses if they're selling like hotcakes.
Foxfire was one of the fastest selling communities in all of Central Ohio last year.
There was a lady in here at one of the other meetings that was talking about that there's a lot of foreclosures in her community.
I'm not aware of that,
So
so I can't speak to that.
I'm just saying, I think that, I know you have to make your money back, I understand that, it's just, I think you guys should consider that instead of going, everyone seems to go to that 10-acre span, like that's 10 feet, 10 feet, it's always 10 feet.
That's the minimum
I know,
requirement.
I know it's the minimum, but that's what I'm saying, you guys max it out to what you can minimally do. So,
Add a little bit to that space.
I have a question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I appreciate, what you guys mentioned about the centralized green space, going above and beyond, and I was actually really happy to see the conservation of the wooded lot for some passive recreation. So thank you for that. What, will any of that open space be placed into a conservation easement to be maintained as a natural space for the community?
It's part of the restriction HOA, CCRs, it would be maintained by the HOA and nothing could be built on that.
Okay.
So it's by default what you're saying, you know, to put something in conservation district would be taking 100-acre field and say, we're gonna put that in a district so it can never be built on. You're doing that by default by stating that in your HOA docs for CCRs.
It's a good point, though. One of the things, I'll go back and I think your question's good and your point's very well made. But one of the things you can do is you can create this as a no-build area so that and then restrict in terms of what trees would be taken down, only dead trees or something along that lines within those HOA docs, so that some rogue HOA board doesn't just decide to cut it all down, clear cut it, and make a soccer field.
And it maintains the ecological, I'm an ecological scientist, so that's my lean. But it maintains the ecological functionality if that intentionality is put into place sooner than later. Follow-up question while I've got you. I appreciate the hurdle of what I'm about to ask, but is there any interest in green stormwater infrastructure in addition to or in exchange for the retention pond solution that you're going with in terms of things like street side bioswales or rain gardens that would allow for retention of the water on site in a more dispersed form rather than centralized retention ponds? And acknowledge it's a loaded question I'm asking, but I just love to see it. I try and design it for all the folks that I work for, so I just
It's a great question.
Throwing it out
It's a
there.
great question in terms of pervious materials, impervious materials, whether you know, rechargeable water, rechargeable groundwaters, all of those types of things, all great questions. We have seen wetland ponds. And in those wetland ponds, though you and I see them for what they are, oftentimes our customers see them as nothing but mosquito nests.
I hear you.
And how did you possibly create that horrible eyesore in my backyard and and you're telling me you can't do anything with that? And it's because of the way that we have done. But yes, certainly we can look into some of those things as far as bioswales and rechargeable groundwater. Sure.
I just, and this is the last thing I'll toss out there. I think that when I tromped through the woods as a kid growing up around here, there was something really magical when you would find a tree line with a creek that was running through it, and it would go from deep pool to deep pool, and you would have that kind of Huck Finn moment out in the woods. You guys have a piece of wood that you're preserving with this vision. Even some connected green stormwater infrastructure through like a bioswale that runs through the area, connecting some of the ponds. That could be somebody's Huck Finn moment and kind of preserve some of what makes this area so beautiful in my opinion.
Thank you, appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Dude, I've got the Huck Finn moment. Let's talk. I do have a question though, but I am serious. No, I'm south of you guys. You border my,
Right
you're
here.
my northern.
Under the
border.
north arrow.
Yeah, about 800 feet and some change. I noticed we've got, I think, 14 or 15 houses that are going to border my property. So that's what I get to see every day. And with 5 feet in between, I'm just wondering, they're all 2-story. And I had hoped that there might be an opportunity to have ranches and just sort of, so I'm not looking at just,
And we will have 2-story on,
I understand.
we'll be offering 2-story in there as well.
I was just wondering if there's any way that, we have a ranch.
Go back to the plan.
I would say, is there a natural, is there a tree line that's currently there? I was looking there.
Yeah, there's a tree line. We've got a tree
It's
line.
minimal, right? I mean, it's
Minimal, yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
But I got Huckleberry Finn.
No, I believe Jeff was out to see you all.
Yes,
Right?
it was great.
Thank you. And Jeff and I spoke about this, and he brought up your point to me this afternoon. I know we said one of the things that we're going to need to look at here is there some type of mounding that we can do with additional pine trees up on top of that mounding as well. And as you know, pines are going to grow relatively tall, so that we can get a 4-foot mound in that area. And then also, the only thing we need to be cautious of is because we do have to try to capture this water that's coming across that property. And we're going to need to put some, according to Jeff, some storm in this back here. And then we also talked about opening up that pond a little bit and putting some riprap in, because I understand it could be backed up with some debris right now as well.
Right.
So I think as far as restricting some of that, we probably could restrict it to some ranch product, but I think more importantly, you're gonna look for if we can do some mounding and some plant buffering.
I think we always
Follow up.
take that in consideration and want to make sure that we meet the folks that are there. Putting mounding and trees would definitely be something that would be on the table.
Follow up.
Yes, ma'am.
How far apart are the garden houses? The garden, how
The
far?
patio.
Patio.
That's the
Patio
northwest, right?
Yeah, to the northwest. It would be the same. 5
Okay,
feet, yeah.
but they're single homes, they're just patio homes?
Yeah, let me,
They don't have the basement requirement.
Oh, okay, so that's,
this is the style of home that we would build. These are all 3-bedroom homes. So they're all single story. And they would be built on a slab, ranging square footage from roughly 1,600 square feet up to about 2,000 square feet. No second stories on them. So again, they're age targeted. In addition to that, this particular area would have we will likely put a maintenance package up on top of that, so that the properties would all be maintained and mowed at the same time.
okay, I'm just,
We find that that product is not here in in Commercial Point right now.
just flip it.
Well, yeah,
She wants section.
Yeah, just flip it.
What's yours, Lovely?
Point made, point made, yeah. it
But
is.
anyway,
I mean,
thank-
that's an
It's a
easy
point,
fix,
yeah.
is what
Yeah.
It is a good point made.
And,
you.
and I don't know the design aspect of how challenging it is, but I mean, you're talking lot
I think
sizes and a lot of amounts.
Yeah, the bigger concern is probably you get the road, you try not to run traffic through that age targeted, area.
And it's proximity.
Right, but
to the park.
And
you do have an entrance into it too.
Yes.
We do.
So, oh, okay, but I see what you're saying.
That's
All right.
more of a thoroughfare.
Gotcha.
Something that we'll take a look.
I-
Consider.
I have one here, and then I'll get you. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll throw them all in at once because there's other people. 5 entrances into it, talked about accessibility to the area. Is there a parking lot for, people to get in there, whether they handicap parking or visitors that are coming over to access that area?
The park?
Correct.
Yes, right now, we've got a row of parking stalls that would, so you come in, there'll be mailboxes there, so that way you can park and get your mail, but you can also park and use the park.
Okay, and you are tying in 5 access points, one north, one east.
Yeah, we're tying into Southern
Yeah, that's Southern Point.
Southern Crossing, and then Durrett, and then
2 of them corridor.
Alright, and since I'm new to the area, going back to the council, if I can really quickly, since they brought it up, the education aspect of it, I don't know if you ever have anybody in the education department here sitting through these or not, but in the plan that you're looking at, is part of that included in, okay, they're only bringing 30 students a year. However, if we have 5 developments going at one time, that's 150. And, my kids are older. But how do you get the school district involved between not only ours, but the other areas that cover in those 150 whatever it
square
was.
miles.
Yeah, 152 square miles?
I think it's
You
the
get them
second
involved
largest
in
footprint in the state of Ohio.
I
for
can,
school district.
I can tell you probably the past month or two, most of council and the mayor have been in contact with the schools related to different developments and have conversation with that. So that is one thing that is on all of our minds. So we do have those communications, much like the other villages that are in the school district.
But we'll reach out as well to Builder. As part of, before the voting process, we'll reach out, set up a meeting, talk to them, show our data, listen to their data. To your point about, having these other developments kind of out in the air, we don't know if they're gonna go through. Here's ours, generating 240 students possibly. What about the one down the road that's generating 300? We don't know. It's really just communicating to the superintendent. The superintendents, they'll be very transparent and tell you, I'm looking at 27 projects right now in my district. I don't know which one's gonna go through or not. I'm assuming all are gonna go through, so I have to be prepared for that. But things happen, right? You go through zoning meetings and things blow up and they don't go through. So it's just a constant communication with the school district, the superintendent, the administration, as well as the village or city or whoever you're working with. So that's part of our process here at DR Horton. So we're only, presenting what our potential enrollment impact could be. We are not presenting what, to your point,
Right, and that's why.
what else is going on around the community, but we will try and get a good idea, because, we also worry about that for our own self, right? We wanna see who else is coming, so, we'll be reaching out to the superintendent and having those meetings, so. Thank you for your question.
Another one for you, Jason.
I had
One for you.
couple here. She was talking about, pine trees on a mound, dividing properties. What I found out in past developments, and I overheard discussion yesterday at a meeting of somebody has water that's staying in the property from a farm field. I don't know where that is or the situation there. Do you have an easement that runs north of her house, I guess, or, where the green space is? Is there an easement for your utilities? And if so, that has to be, so there is one for utilities. And you have to make plans for a watershed that comes through there to eliminate that. But you have to know the volume and the flow rate that's gonna be, dependent on that area there.
Yeah, we have civil engineers that measure all
Yeah.
that. And so when you're talking about, when you look at a place like that, for instance, you have a rear yard stormwater pipe that will come in, take inlet from the street, and also collect from any kind of watershed. If there's water coming in, this is a lot of, you're talking about some serious, weeks and weeks and months of data collection, sizing the pipes, and understanding if you're starting with a 10, either a 12, or 18, or 24, what volume of water has to move through there, the amount of water that sheds, and then detention ability of that pond, and then how it releases that water. So all of that, there's a science behind that. And we have some of the best civil engineers there are around the state solving those problems.
This general area, you're looking at several hundred acres that are being farmed now, that are sheeting this way.
There's another problem with that, you got a farm, you got drain tiles, fill tiles.
When it works.
Yeah, when it works.
When it don't work, is when you got a house in a community that has 3 sump pumps in the house, and I've worked in a house like that, 3 sump pumps in one house. Because how it was positioned, the tile was running all around it, it was disturbed, flooding her against her foundation, and she was just.
You're talking about a house that's on a larger lot that has a little field with a broken tile, and so that absolutely, specifically because we have a lot of clay, it doesn't drain well, it goes to the lowest point, which is the basement flood. That is eliminated in this particular environment because you don't have field tiles. All of that is an input system of water retention. And this is, again, water management is, you don't see it because it's underground. Water and sewer, those things are so complex, and that is the majority of the engineering that goes into this. There's an infrastructure that goes in there, and you can't, I can give you the numbers about what it takes to get that done, the amount of dollar per linear foot when you put all the utilities in there. There's a whole sidebar conversation we can have.
And any field tiles that are cut while we're installing infrastructure, we've got to either repair or tie them into our system, and they take care of them. So,
I mean, that's hard to do, but I understand. I mean, that's real hard to do. They will both agree to that.
We have to do that.
I have another question back here. No worries. So this particular residential subdivision is going to be the first one in some time developed in Commercial Point that abuts a township road or a county road. Most of them, Foxfire, Citus Crossing, those have all kind of been tucked back or attached to other subdivisions. The previous two, your Chestnut developments, and you also have Walker Point on Walker Road. And what we have is those were kind of new, folks hadn't really seen subdivisions, and they were built with the backyards facing those townships and those county roads. And so we have kind of the same thing here where we have McCord Road, and then you're going to have 15 or 20 lots with their backyards facing. And if you drive up Welch Road or you drive down Walker Road, what you see is a hodgepodge of different backyards, different aesthetics, they're kept in different manners, they have different fencing, and that's all well and good now. But it's not all well and good once the west side of McCord Road gets developed. And I know what we've seen in a lot of growing areas, like if you go north off Highland Croy up in that area in the Dublin Powell area, is they have started ensuring that the homes that face those township and county roads, they actually face your homes have the front of the homes facing those roads, whether or not there's an internal road that they loop around, but you plan for the future of the subdivision across the way, so that way it keeps a community feel instead of segregated spaces. Is that something you would be willing to consider for a subdivision of this nature?
I gotta say, Bruce, I think this is designed very, very well in terms of that specific matter, because you have maybe 64 through 66. There's some, I don't know what that distance is between the road there, and then again, maybe 26 through 30, but again, maybe 29. There's a lot of space in between. I know what you're saying as far as we drive down Welsh Road and I'm looking at all the fencing and the different style of fencing that's abutting Welsh Road. I know what you're saying. There's also ways that you can actually, through deed restrictions, you can limit any fencing on those lots. So that would be restricted. If you want a fence, you're not going to buy on that lot.
Or you've got a standard fence. Here's your fence if you're gonna put a fence in.
To me, it's less the fencing and more of the cohesive neighborhood feel as you proceed with the next development, right? Because you end up only looking at backyards instead of front doors facing each other. And so that's the thought. I honestly didn't even know it was a thing until I found the Highland Court subdivisions about 10 years ago when they started developing up there as they've grown more. And it definitely provides more of a town feel instead of what we have now are these segregated pods of subdivisions. And learning from that and trying to make sure that the next phase of development, which looks like it's growing out this way, allows for a more cohesive and neighborhood feel.
Question behind me here.
I just have a statement. I did, when this first came, there were a lot more houses in the county. And you guys have cut it down like 100 homes. And given the more green space, which we all as council at that time, and when I took over as mayor, was like, we want the green space. I like the play yard. I like cherries, because that's also something eventually I would love to have as an all-inclusive playground. I think that's important. I did show this plan to, I sat down with the fire chief and assistant fire chief. He loved all the different entrances. He thought the width of the roads were good, the cul-de-sacs were good. So he was very happy with this. So I know that they would see that during technical review, but I wanted to show it to him ahead of time, and he said he'd be happy to come to council and express that as well. So I think it's a very well thought out.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. I have a quick follow-up question to what you're pointing out. Now, that subdivision we bought into in Washington State, the HOA put in, on the major thoroughfare, put in a 6-foot wooden plank fence. It was the HOA responsibility. So if you bought those houses, you would have a fence at your back line because they didn't want backyards, kids going into it, whatever it may be, into the street there. And I think you're talking about putting all them front facing, so that means all the backyards would be to each other?
However, I don't know the best way to design it. It could be something like they have here in the interior, or generally, I don't know. It's just,
Right, so however you configure it, if you flop them so they're all looking out, now their backyards are to the other neighbors unless their backyards with the street in between it, however you want to look at it. I think it's a bigger concern, if you're worried about traffic, and I'd be more concerned about my kids running out into traffic, whether it's my front yard or backyard into a major thoroughfare. And I'd rather have the HOA put up a fence for everybody, that if you want to build it at that second one in, you can tie into it.
I think that's a great point, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
This is no landscaping plan here, but I almost envision it when we build this. We put a 3-rail across, so it's uniform, it's cohesive, and a landscape somewhat as well, with some evergreens and trees that we mature. And that would provide A, screening, and B, I think you're absolutely right, the safety aspect for the kids in the school as well. I think that's a really good consideration to take it when we design an actual landscaping portion of that. Because you're looking at one aspect of it, and when you submit these plans, they're 30 pages to us, they're different cut sheets and landscaping, et cetera.
Good feedback from McCord Road. I appreciate that. Thanks, Bruce.
Can you put the aerial back up, please? All right, Dustin, you know better than I know, because I can't see that, where the roads are. My eyes can't tell the roads. Where is the data center going compared to that Durrett 104?
Sorry.
This one right here.
We don't know.
Yeah, you'll see the corner right, that is
Right here.
what's designated. Well, that
Over
brown area right there.
The whole farm.
Right there.
The whole farm.
The whole area.
There you go.
All right, I see it now. I see where 104.
Will it go all the way to the entrance to Sam?
I don't know exactly, but that's the property for that destination.
That's my biggest question, with what you guys are spending on your development, and you got a data center coming right in next door to it. Are you gonna have your customers that you say that are gonna buy these houses want to live right beside a data center with that kind of money they're putting out for their homes?
Again, ma'am, I think that's gonna be market driven.
I don't consider that market driven. I consider that if they physically see that data center, they're not gonna buy in your development.
Well, again, I think that'll be a decision that they'll make and not one that we'll make. But to the point, are we gonna let them know that the data center is gonna be there? Of course we would.
Disclose it?
Sure.
Yeah, we have a form we've gotta fill out, and we put disclosures together that become part of the contract.
That has been some feedback that we've gotten from some of the developments in the area that they haven't fully felt that that's been provided, thank you.
I think
transparent to them
part of it,
during their process, so.
during the sales process, no one knew that there was gonna be a
and I
data
would say
center there.
this, yeah. When we annexed and zoned Cider Crossing, this was still zoned residential.
In fact.
And it
what I
wasn't
remember-
until after, because we actually tried to buy it.
Yeah, same here, because we
Yeah.
looked at everything on this side of 104, being residential, commercial, industrial on the other side, so it was a bit of a surprise, but to that point, there's a lot of 150 some data centers in the central Ohio area, all kinds of distribution. When we see that in Dublin, we see it in Bay, we see it in other places, I was like surprised there's one in Worthington, there, Worthington, nice subdivision next door. Again, they're gonna have to put some sort of you're not gonna put just the cutting down the thing down there, it's gonna have to have screening and, I don't think it's gonna be as egregious, you know, if it was like a nuclear waste plant, that'd be a problem, but obviously data center is fairly benign when it comes to that. And I agree with Jack, it's gonna be a decision based on what the buyers, but there will be funding, we know what it is now, it has to be disclosed.
That's not our question.
Yep.
What are we doing to the roads on McCord and Durrett? What kind of improvements are we making on those roads?
It's a great question. I had asked Mike if they had done a traffic study, a traffic impact study. And I guess just for the general public, whenever a development moves forward, you're gonna have to do a traffic impact study. So if we're fortunate enough to build 321 homes, that's all gonna be evaluated as far as how much traffic's coming in and out of there, where's that traffic dispersed to, what are the time. So there's a full traffic study that will be done. That traffic study, which will be reviewed by the village's engineer and approved ultimately, will decide what improvements will need to be made on Durrett, on McCord, on the intersections, other impacting intersections. Oftentimes we need to make the improvements, or there are fees in lieu where we have to make our proportionate contribution because there's a bigger master plan that either the village or another jurisdiction, ODOT, whomever, would rather us just pay them because whatever we put in, 2 or 3 years later, they're just gonna tear out. And so, yeah, it's that.
Well, I mean, you've been in enough council meetings, you know that's a huge.
100%.
That was a huge.
So that TIS, I'll let you just speak to the traffic impact study.
Tom Stanhope, which I'm sure most folks know, he's the one that runs all the traffic studies around here. He's done one for us, it needs to be updated now with the data center being there and understanding what's happening on 104 and Durrett. I think there's a bigger project from all the warehouses, so things have changed, even in 6 months things change. So we have to go back and revisit these things, and again, we would have to address all of that, so appreciate that question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, traffic, I don't know how you guys do that as far as determining how much traffic is gonna be, what the impact is gonna be. But when you're studying that, do you study it, for like that west portion of your development? Do you study it at capacity or do you study it in increments?
When they do these traffic studies, they assume that it's gonna be, that the community's built out. They assume where the traffic's gonna be going, and they've got their standard tables that are based on how many trips, they call them trips, how many trips are made based off the use. So if you've got a single family house, you get, 1 trip in the morning and 1 trip in the evening and 2 trips during the day, that type of thing. And then you've got apartments and you've got industrial. And so there's a whole table of all of this. And so they determine and build out how many trips are happening and where they're going.
They'll look at peak times,
Yes.
off times, peak times, of course, mornings and evenings, off times, weekends. Later in the evening, school bus times, so they're gonna take all the school bus traffic into consideration, summertime, and then also, as Andrew was saying, we find that the active adult has different traffic patterns than a 2-story. The days are started a little bit later, they go to the grocery store instead of in the evenings, they're going more, so all of that is taken into consideration when they do this study.
It is.
And not just for this area, but it's also for the entire area. they'll look at
We'll look at all the
all
intersections.
Oh,
the
okay, so
intersections.
Yeah, they go all
I'm
out.
sorry, I really don't know about
Yeah,
that.
they go to
Yeah.
multiple intersections, there's an MOU that's passed around, some memorandum of understanding that says we're gonna study these areas. We do a peak on peak, they do it during school
Current,
times.
once developed,
Right,
so
there
you
was
see
a-
exactly where there's been
We call
current
it
issues.
build, no build scenario. Right.
And how we're improving that, the current issue.
It is very complex how they do it, and there's a lot to it. But again, it gets reviewed by the engineers for the city, Cap Village engineer. And so it's not just, here's what the study says, this is what we're doing, this is what the study says, we all agree on it, and everybody has to.
What I will say this is we as the developer, we as the builder, we must pay for our proportionate share. So if we're bringing 300 homes to this community, we're gonna end up paying for those improvements as required by the traffic study.
Yeah, I wasn't asking that, I was just like, I didn't know how you did it.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
There's a whole different department that handles that.
You can make a career out of just doing traffic studies. People do make careers out of that. So.
I won't take much of your time. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight. But looking at this has all been annexed, right?
Yeah.
Into
Yes.
the village. But that's just a small section. I know this from snow plowing. That's a township road, McCord. That's a county road, Durrett. I'm just trying to picture how this is going to work. If you do the improvements to McCord Road, is it just in front of the subdivision? Or as you enter McCord from Durrett, you've probably seen how narrow that is. It has to do with the layout of the land. So that'd be one question I had. You don't have to give me an answer now, but more importantly, our fire department will service that subdivision, and you're tied into one of the largest township subdivisions in the county.
Yeah,
It's
Fayette, right?
Southern Point. Southern Point,
That's
and
our
that's
department.
one of Commercial Point's, if not their largest customer as far as water and sewer. So I would, as a trustee, I would love it if you guys would come to one of our meetings. I know we can't approve anything, or you don't have to answer to us, but there's a lot of Southern Point residents and McCord residents, they're township residents, that would love the opportunity, to respectfully, ask questions there too.
100%, we'll be there.
That'd be
If you'd
great.
like to see us make the same presentation, we'd be happy to do that.
Great. I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
And
Thank
it does
you.
make a good point, because not to speak to it, is those corridors, those roadways are a huge concern with everyone involved, as you can imagine. But I can't underline that enough. So.
I expressed this to Councilman Ezekiel and said, there's nothing better for us to make a community successful than residents that already live there. That
Yeah.
prefer their friends, their family members, their co-workers, come live here. It's a great community. So if we, having that opportunity to go talk to Southern Point, maybe even some of the residents in Southern Point may want to live here. And they would love to see that community.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The only question I had is phasing. So you got 1, 2, 3 sections, you're building, 40 per year. Is that being divided between the ones, or you can build here first and then there?
That's a good question. Likely, we would try to get into at least 2 product types to get started. So you may need to get started here, or wherever we decide the age targeted product is, and then of course here where you have the single family. That would likely the best case scenario.
We haven't quite gotten into the detail of phasing yet, so.
I'm actually gonna help you with this. If you start on the west side, develop that first, you're gonna keep the people on the east side from getting mad about all the dust that's gonna go in that direction, covering their houses for 8 years. And the adjacent neighborhood that's to the east of it. Cause in the mornings when you get due on your house, it sticks to it. 8 years of that, who's gonna clean it? If you got an 80-year-old person in that house, and their house is like a mud house.
So they'll be 88 by the time they're done. So.
Yeah, I guess they'll be part of it at that time, right?
But the wind is no joke.
Yeah.
The wind is no joke.
Especially last Friday.
Yeah, Friday was cleaning up.
Not only that, start that way, then all the other.
Now, I think what there's, I was waiting to go through a litany of things, and a lot of things got covered. A couple of residents, including myself, is amenities, right? So I think that was, when they first saw that, it seemed like it was maybe a little short of, because right now we don't have, and hopefully at some point in the future, we have maybe a larger centralized park for the village. But in order to, and I know that we have that, but people are throwing around pools and common areas or a gazebo, those types of amenities that we do have. I know Foxfire has some areas and they bring in, food trucks, or they have their own community, parties and things like that. So those are the thought process that I would have, is what would bring those community folks together. I know Chestnut, I talked with some folks in the Chestnut area, that they don't feel like they have enough of that in their development. So I told them I would at least bring that up and say, hey, look, can we consider this to add some of those in the green spaces and not take down the trees? I think that's very valuable for us in the conservation aspect of it. But in some of the other areas and how that will work, and if there's some reconfiguration that's needed to, I think it'd be a better selling point, not just for those who are coming in, but for our community as a whole.
Sure, it's a great question. Oftentimes you have to have a certain number of families or a certain number of households to get to where a pool makes economic sense. Because ultimately, we leave that community, do not subsidize that HOA anymore, and that maintenance is ultimately passed through to the homeowners. And so ultimately, you're looking somewhere in that $600 to $800 a year range for a